People don't treat you as valuable because somewhere along the way, you taught them that your time, attention, and presence come cheap. It's a difficult truth to accept, but it's the only place to begin if you genuinely want your life to change. Take an honest look at the people around you. Do they constantly interrupt you while you're talking? Do they cancel plans at the last minute without thinking twice? Do they only call when they need a favor? Do they cross your boundaries because they assume you'll never say no? If this sounds familiar, the problem isn't that every person in your life is selfish. The real problem is that you've been sending signals, small, almost invisible signals, that tell people your value is low. Every time you're always available, every time you drop your priorities for someone else, every time you're afraid they'll leave if you stop trying, you're teaching people that losing you wouldn't cost them anything. And human nature always follows one simple rule. What is easy to get is rarely appreciated. What is difficult to earn becomes valuable. Think about it. Nobody gets excited over something they can have whenever they want. Scarcity creates desire. Scarcity creates respect. If you're always saying yes, always replying within seconds, always making yourself emotionally available, people slowly stop seeing you as someone special. You become predictable, you become convenient, and eventually, you become invisible. Today, we're going to reverse that process. Using timeless principles inspired by Robert Greene's philosophy and the strategic thinking of Machiavelli, you're going to learn how to increase your perceived value without begging for respect. Because respect isn't requested, it's created. The first lesson begins with one of the oldest economic principles in existence: supply and demand. Most people think this idea only applies to money, businesses, or expensive products. They're wrong. It also applies to people. Why is a limited edition sports car worth hundreds of thousands of dollars while an ordinary sedan isn't? It's not because the expensive car is always more practical. It's because rarity changes perception. The same thing happens in human relationships. For years, you've probably believed that being the nicest person, the most dependable friend, the employee who never complains, or the partner who always gives more would naturally earn respect. Unfortunately, human psychology doesn't always reward constant availability. In many situations, excessive giving creates the opposite effect. When someone receives unlimited access to your time and attention, they stop recognizing its value. Instead of thinking, this person is generous, many people unconsciously think, this person doesn't have many other priorities. That's how value quietly disappears. The goal isn't to become cold or selfish. The goal is to stop making yourself endlessly available. Imagine two consultants. One accepts every client immediately. The other has a waiting list and carefully chooses who they work with. Which one instantly appears more valuable? The answer has nothing to do with talent. It has everything to do with perception, and perception shapes respect. If you want people to value your presence, they must feel that access to you is earned, not automatically given. The next principle is what I call the psychology of the open door. Picture a house where the front door is never locked. Neighbors walk in whenever they want. Some stay too long. Some make a mess. Some leave without even saying goodbye. Eventually, nobody treats that house with respect because access has no value. Most people live their lives exactly like that. They're available every minute of the day. The moment a notification appears, they answer. The second someone asks for a favor, they agree. They rearrange their schedule just to avoid disappointing someone else. Without realizing it, they're sending one clear message: my time isn't that important. People believe what your behavior repeatedly teaches them. If you consistently place everyone else's priorities above your own, they'll eventually assume your priorities don't matter. That's why respect slowly disappears. Not because people are cruel, but because you've trained them to expect unlimited access. Now imagine someone completely different. You text them. They don't always respond immediately. Not because they're playing games, because they're actually busy living their own life. When they agree to meet you, they're fully present. When they're unavailable, they don't apologize for having other priorities. Notice how different that feels. Without saying a single word, they've communicated something powerful. Their attention has value. This is the mindset you must develop. Access to your time should become something people appreciate, not something they assume they'll always receive. That doesn't mean ignoring people. It doesn't mean pretending to be mysterious. It means understanding that your attention is one of your most valuable assets. Spend it intentionally. The moment you stop treating your attention like it's unlimited, other people stop treating it like it's worthless. Carry yourself like someone who belongs. Robert Greene often emphasizes that people respond to the image you project long before they discover who you really are. If you constantly shrink yourself, if you apologize for speaking, if you hesitate before expressing an opinion, people unconsciously assume you're asking for permission to exist. Confidence doesn't begin when everyone approves of you. Confidence begins when you stop asking for approval. Walk into a room as though you have every right to be there. Speak slowly. Maintain eye contact. Finish your thoughts without rushing. Small behaviors create powerful impressions. The people who command respect rarely chase it. They simply behave as though self-respect is already non-negotiable. Stop trying to be liked by everyone. Many people confuse kindness with endless accommodation. They're afraid that saying no will make them seem rude. They're afraid disagreement will push people away. So they smile through disrespect. They laugh at jokes that bother them. They accept treatment they secretly resent. But there is an important difference between being kind and having no standards. A respected person isn't difficult. They're simply clear about what they will and won't accept. Think about a private members-only club. Not everyone gets inside. Membership requires meeting certain standards. The exclusivity increases its reputation. Your life should work the same way. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your energy. Not everyone deserves your trust immediately. Not everyone deserves your time. When someone repeatedly ignores your boundaries, you don't lower your standards just to keep them around. You allow them to leave. Because lowering your standards to avoid losing someone always costs more than losing the person. Respect begins when you're willing to walk away. Here's one of the hardest truths about human relationships. People rarely respect what they know they'll never lose. If someone believes you'll always forgive, always come back, always tolerate the same behavior, they have no reason to change. The greatest source of personal power is knowing you'll be okay, even if someone walks away. The next time someone repeatedly disrespects you, resist the urge to argue. Don't send long paragraphs trying to make them understand your feelings. Don't chase explanations. Instead, step back. Reduce your availability. Allow your absence to speak where your words never could. Silence often communicates confidence more effectively than endless explanations. When your presence is no longer guaranteed, people suddenly recognize the value they overlooked. And if they don't, you've still protected something even more valuable: your self-respect. One of the fastest ways people reduce their own value is by talking too much. Not because they're dishonest, but because they feel uncomfortable with silence. So they fill every quiet moment with explanations. They overshare their plans. They reveal their insecurities. They explain every decision they make, and without realizing it, they remove every layer of mystery. Robert Greene's fourth law of power reminds us, always say less than necessary. This isn't about becoming cold or antisocial. It's about understanding that words lose value when they're given away too freely. Imagine meeting two executives. The first dominates every conversation. He interrupts. He explains every opinion. He talks just to avoid silence. By the end of the meeting, you know almost everything about him. The second executive speaks only when there's something meaningful to add. When he does speak, everyone listens. Which person naturally appears more influential? Usually, it's the one who doesn't feel the need to prove anything. Silence creates curiosity. Curiosity creates attention. And attention creates value. Stop explaining yourself. Many people feel guilty for making simple decisions, so they constantly justify themselves. I couldn't answer because I was really busy. I hope you don't mind, but I already had plans. I know this probably sounds weird. Notice what's happening. They're asking for permission before they've done anything wrong. Confident people don't constantly defend ordinary decisions. If you can't make dinner, simply say, "I won't be able to make it tonight." If you're unavailable, say, "I'm booked that day." That's enough. The more you over-explain, the more people assume your decisions require their approval. Your time belongs to you, not to everyone demanding an explanation. Mystery is more powerful than constant exposure. Think about the people who leave a lasting impression. They usually aren't the loudest person in the room. They're often the hardest to fully figure out. You know enough to respect them, but not enough to predict every move they make. People naturally fill in the blanks. When someone isn't constantly revealing everything about themselves, others begin creating stories in their own minds. They assume confidence. They assume competence. They assume depth. Ironically, the less you try to convince people you're impressive, the more impressive they often believe you are. Handle disrespect without losing control. Sooner or later, someone will test you. Maybe it's a sarcastic remark. Maybe it's a joke meant to embarrass you in front of other people. Most people react in one of two ways. They laugh even though they're uncomfortable, or they become emotional and immediately start defending themselves. Both reactions hand control to the other person. Instead, slow everything down. Look directly at them. Stay calm. Don't rush to respond. Let the silence sit for a moment. That silence communicates something words often can't. It tells everyone in the room that you're not easily shaken. Very often, the other person becomes uncomfortable first. They'll smile nervously, they'll change the subject, or they'll quickly say, "Relax, I was only kidding." The moment they begin explaining themselves, the balance of power has already shifted. Protect your emotional energy. Some people don't want advice. They don't want solutions. They simply want someone to absorb their negativity every single day. Every conversation becomes another complaint, another crisis, another hour spent listening to problems that never change. Being supportive is admirable. Becoming someone's permanent emotional dumping ground is not. Healthy relationships involve balance. Both people listen. Both people care. Both people invest. If every conversation leaves you mentally exhausted while the other person feels lighter, you're not building a relationship. You're carrying one. Learn to set limits. You can care about someone without becoming responsible for every emotion they experience. Protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's necessary, because people respect those who protect their boundaries far more than those who sacrifice themselves to please everyone. One of the biggest shifts in power happens the moment you stop asking, "Do they like me?" and start asking, "Do they deserve a place in my life?" Most people enter every new relationship trying to impress the other person. They choose their words carefully. They hide their real opinions. They avoid disagreement. They become whatever they think the other person wants. Without realizing it, they've already placed themselves in the lower position. The person chasing approval always gives away the power. The person evaluating earns it. That doesn't mean acting arrogant. It means remembering that every relationship works both ways. When you meet someone new, pay attention. How do they treat people who can't offer them anything? Do they keep their word? Do they respect boundaries? Do they take responsibility for their actions? Instead of trying to sell yourself, observe them. Let them earn your trust the same way they expect to earn yours. The moment you begin evaluating instead of performing, your entire presence changes. Your posture becomes calmer. Your words become more deliberate. You stop forcing conversations. and people begin sensing that your attention must be earned. Stop apologizing for existing. Pay attention to how often people apologize for things that don't require an apology. Sorry for texting. Sorry for asking. Sorry for taking your time. Sorry I couldn't answer right away. Most of these apologies come from one place: the fear of inconveniencing someone. But constant unnecessary apologies quietly communicate something dangerous. They suggest that your presence is a burden. Unless you've genuinely harmed someone, you don't need to apologize for having boundaries. Instead of saying, "Sorry for the late reply," try saying, "Thanks for your patience." Instead of, "Sorry to bother you," say, "I have a quick question." Notice the difference. One focuses on guilt. The other communicates confidence. Language shapes perception. The words you repeatedly use eventually become the identity people assign to you. Neediness is visible before you ever speak. People often believe they can hide desperation. They can't. Neediness shows up everywhere. It appears in constant texting. It appears in always waiting for someone else's approval. It appears in checking your phone every few minutes, hoping for a reply. The more your happiness depends on another person's attention, the more power you hand them. Real confidence comes from building a life that already feels meaningful. When your schedule is filled with goals, when you're improving your health, growing your career, learning new skills, creating something you're proud of, you naturally become less dependent on anyone else's validation. Ironically, that's when people become more interested in you. Because confidence is attractive, neediness is exhausting. People enjoy being chosen. They rarely enjoy being needed. Build a life bigger than any relationship. Many people accidentally make one person the center of their entire world. Every decision revolves around them. Every mood depends on them. Every future plan includes them. That's an enormous amount of pressure for any relationship. Your purpose should always be larger than one individual. Whether it's building a business, mastering your profession, improving your body, creating meaningful work, or chasing a lifelong dream, your mission should remain your foundation. Relationships should add to your life. They should never replace it. People naturally respect those who are moving towards something meaningful, because purpose creates direction, and direction creates quiet confidence. Your standards decide your value. In the end, people don't determine your worth. Your standards do. Every time you tolerate disrespect, you teach others what they'll be allowed to repeat. Every time you ignore broken promises, you make future broken promises easier. Every time someone crosses a line without consequences, that line disappears. High-value people don't constantly argue. They don't threaten. They don't seek revenge. They simply enforce boundaries. If someone repeatedly disrespects them, access is reduced. Trust is reduced. Time is reduced. Because consequences teach lessons far better than emotional speeches ever will. Respect isn't built by demanding it. It's built by consistently showing people what you will and won't accept. The world always watches your actions more closely than your words. And over time, people begin treating you exactly the way you've trained them to. Now that you've strengthened your boundaries, it's time to understand another powerful principle of human nature. People naturally value what other people value. This is why a busy restaurant often attracts more customers than an empty one. Why a successful business draws more opportunities. Why confident people seem to attract even more attention. It's called social proof. Human beings constantly look to others when deciding what has value. The same principle applies to you. If your entire world revolves around one person, if you're always available, always waiting, always hoping they'll choose you, you unconsciously communicate that you have very few options. But when people see that your life is already full, you have goals, friends, projects, purpose, a schedule that matters, they immediately begin viewing you differently, not because you're pretending, because you're genuinely building a life that doesn't depend on anyone's approval. Your value rises when people realize your attention isn't guaranteed. Let other people invest too. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing they have to do everything. They plan every outing, start every conversation, solve every problem, carry every relationship. Eventually, they become exhausted, and strangely enough, the other person often values the relationship less. Why? Because people appreciate what they invest in. Imagine two neighbors. One receives a beautiful garden as a gift. The other spends months planting it, watering it, and taking care of it. Which garden will they protect more? The second one. Because effort creates attachment. Healthy relationships require investment from both sides. Allow people to contribute. Let them make plans sometimes. Let them check in first. Let them put effort into earning your trust. Relationships become stronger when both people have something invested. Become slightly unpredictable. Predictability creates comfort, but too much predictability creates complacency. If people always know exactly how you'll respond, exactly where you'll be, exactly what you'll say, they stop paying attention. This doesn't mean becoming inconsistent or manipulative. It means refusing to become emotionally automatic. Sometimes you're quiet, sometimes you're energetic, sometimes you're unavailable because you're focused on your own priorities. Your life shouldn't revolve around maintaining someone else's expectations. The more complete your own life becomes, the less predictable you naturally appear. People begin wondering what you're working on, where you've been, what your next move is. Curiosity increases attention. Attention increases perceived value. Learn the power of saying no. Many people think saying yes makes them kind. Sometimes, it simply makes them available. Every unnecessary yes comes at the expense of something else. Your time, your focus, your peace. Successful people don't protect their schedules by accident. They protect them intentionally. When something doesn't align with your priorities, it's perfectly acceptable to decline. Not rudely, not emotionally, simply and respectfully. I won't be able to make it. That doesn't fit my schedule. I'll have to pass this time. Notice something. None of those responses require a 5-minute explanation. Confident people understand that boundaries don't need lengthy justifications. Every time you protect your time, you remind yourself and everyone else that your life has direction. Become emotionally unshakable. One of the strongest signals of confidence is emotional stability. Anyone can remain calm when everything goes well. The real test begins when life becomes uncomfortable. Someone criticizes you, someone ignores you, someone tries to provoke you. Most people react instantly. They defend themselves, raise their voice, try to win the argument. But emotionally disciplined people respond differently. They pause, they think, then they choose their response instead of reacting automatically. This doesn't mean suppressing emotion, it means controlling it. People naturally trust those who remain composed during pressure, because calmness communicates strength. Anyone can create chaos. Very few people can create stability. Become that person, not the loudest voice in the room, but the one whose composure quietly changes the atmosphere. When people realize they can't control your emotions, they stop trying to manipulate them, and that's when real respect begins.